I just got home from watching Fast X, the first movie in apparently a trilogy of films intended to close out the Fast Saga. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know your excitement level for Fast X and this trilogy of films intended to close out the Fast Saga. My thoughts aren't the right thoughts, they're just my thoughts, and I would love to hear yours if and when you have seen the movie. As a point of reference, as I go into this, I'm having to shoot this later at night than I normally film. I just watched the movie, and I'm immediately filming this without any notes, because I actually leave town at 6 a.m. tomorrow, so I need to get this shot before I leave town and head on out to Denver. So I'm shooting this essentially in one take with fewer notes, so if it's a little bit different, if you like that, if you hate that, that's the reason for it. Let's get started. And if you're unaware, I get a kick out of the Fast and the Furious movies. Ever since Fast 5, I've really enjoyed these films. Even the last couple of movies where they started getting very silly, very cartoonish, started having cars driving around in space and stuff. It was dumb, but it's my type of dumb. I call these Taco Bell movies. They're cinematic fast food. We all like different fast food, and this is my junk food, cinematic junk food, as you might call it. So even the last couple, I've had fun with them, but they've been entirely forgettable. They're the sort of movie that I have fun with them in the theater and then forget every single thing that happened in the movie, because it's just meaningless shenanigans with the family. I really dug 5 through 7. Felt like that was when they were in their stride, but Fate of the Furious, F9, getting a little bit too silly. And I would say that this film feels like a return to that vibe of 5, 6, 7. It's still wild, it's still crazy, it's globe-trotting spy stuff with crazy stunts, but it dialed back the wackiness, the cartoonish elements where cars are driving around in space and where Dom, like, literally Tarzan swings a car across a ravine and stuff like that. It dials some of that stuff back. It's by no means grounded. You can watch the trailer and see him do insane things, but it kind of returned to that kind of version of things that at least had some element of reality to, some basis in reality, and not just total wackiness. And I think the thing that really elevates this movie is that it very much is a direct sequel to Fast 5. A movie that, if, like, you know, some people just love 1 through 4 because they're into the car culture stuff. If you're into more kind of the action, heist, spy, team-up movie stuff of the later movies, generally speaking, most people think Fast 5 is the strongest one, and this is a direct sequel to it, about the consequences of that movie and other things that have taken place. And you have a villain with very personal motivations in tracking down Dom and the family. In that regard, it's a little bit reminiscent of Furious 7, where Jason Statham's character was out for revenge. But I would say this one commits more to the concept, whereas in Furious 7, it kicks off with this idea of Jason Statham's out for revenge, and then it kind of like goes on this whole other thing about God's eye and these terrorists trying to get it, and the agency and Mr. Nobody and all this other stuff. And so it's not entirely focused on the revenge side to it, whereas this one, everything that's taking place is part of the revenge scheme. And I think that committing to that helps the movie a great deal. You kind of feel the stakes, the danger that our characters are in. Another thing about this movie is that it does kind of feel a little bit different. The nature of the story with someone out to get them, trying to break them up, separate them, it gives it a bit of a different vibe. I think the story will stick with you a little bit more. Like, I've seen F9 2 times. I'm actually going to rewatch it after I filmed this video. I watched it 2 times when it was in the theater a couple years back, And like, I don't really remember the plot. I remember Dom's brothers mad at him, but I don't remember why any of the stuff was taking place. What was caught in driving any, I don't know. I don't remember why it was happening. I just remember John Cena is Dom's brother and they did flashbacks and there's a car in space. I feel like this is a movie where you'll actually remember the plot. It feels significant and relevant to the actual Fast saga and things that you care about because it's impactful. It's not just adding another person, more crazy stunts, and you just kind of come and go. This one, someone that ties back to a movie that you remember, is out for revenge for specific reasons, and there's stakes, there's consequences, and the plot is more interesting for that reason. You're more invested in it on an emotional level and other reasons because it's personal, and you understand why it's taking place, where this person's coming from. Another thing about it, I've heard several people kind of compare it to Infinity War. From the people that were at the world premiere, the kind of the initial reactions, I saw two totally different people compare it to Infinity War. And that's actually a pretty good comparison for multiple reasons. The first comparison would be because it's closing out a saga. It's, part one of multiple parts. They openly stated this, but it ends on a cliffhanger. So the movie comes to an end. It is not designed to resolve its story at all. So something happens at the end where the cliffhanger kicks in, and I was like, oh, I bet this is basically the end. And then it essentially was, and I could just hear people around me being like, what? That's it? What? Like, that's the way this movie kind of plays out. But, so it has that cliffhanger in the same sense that Infinity War did, with intentionally dangling plot threads. How are you going to get out of this? Oh no, wow, this is the worst thing that's happened in the history of these movies. What's the family going to do? So in that regard, it's very much like Infinity War, but also the nature of the story, because the objective of the guy is to split everybody up, it kind of sends everybody on their own little side quests, the same way that Infinity War kind of had these 4-5 different locations, 4-5 different plot lines happening. That's the nature of this movie, that you're following different characters in different places, each of them kind of having their own path that they're on, thing that they're trying to figure out, work through, and our goal to try and take out our main bad guy here. And driving home, I saw it with my wife. For her, that seemed to really pull the movie down for her. That bothered her about it. And so this was probably the most negative I've heard her about a Fast and the Furious movie. She still had fun with it, but she was significantly more negative than I was expecting. For me, I thought that was a nice change of pace. For movies that tend to be about the family and all of them are doing kind of this thing together, when you have one, now actually it's over 10 movies in because of Hobbs and Shaw, that has multiple storylines all kind of taking place at the same time, it gave it a different vibe, a different feel. I appreciated that change of pace and the way that worked, and it allowed kind of more things to happen and interesting things to happen without the movie feeling like it needed to keep upping itself. Like other movies in the franchise, it felt like everything seemed to like just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this one didn't quite have that vibe to it, I don't feel, but it's kept you entertained. It kept things happening. Now, you got to talk about all of our new characters in here. The first one immediately to discuss is Jason Momoa as Dante, our main villain. And he is stealing every scene that he's in. His character's designed basically to let Jason Momoa off his leash and just go wild. Drink a bunch of Red Bull before every take and just go crazy, or snort cocaine, whatever he's doing, he's just going for it every single take. And his character is supposed to be like insane, and that's what makes him so fun, because he's an extraordinarily violent, ruthless person, but his personality is like fun-loving, carefree, isn't nervous about anything. He just is enjoying life. That Jason Momoa energy while being a psychotic killer. And makes Cypher from the last two, who was a cold-blooded killer, seem tame because he's such like that cranked up. And it's not just business. He's having fun with all the insanity that he's doing and all of the Momoa charm and charisma just oozing out of him. Other newcomers in here, we also have Brie Larson, who's kind of helping out the family, and she's kind of a weird addition because it's like she pops in for 20 minutes, like a third of the way through the movie, and is super important, and then it's like they didn't have much for her to do for the rest of the movie. And so she kind of serves some plot purposes. That's kind of the way her character is used, is they need someone to like make some things happen. And she just does that. And even the way she does it, it feels like she's plot tape a little bit. Like how on earth is this character getting to all these locations across the whole globe and finding everybody and delivering everything that needs to be delivered? That's the role of her character. And so there's not like an arc for her. There's not kind of much going on but she's fine. It doesn't distract. She doesn't bring anything down. I don't think she makes it too much better, but that's the nature of the character. It doesn't give her much to kind of work with. Other one in here that I thought was a lot of fun that he was in it was Alan Richardson, Reacher. This is a guy that's been in stuff going back almost 20 years since he was Aquaman on Smallville, and finally started to get his big break because he was in Reacher last year, which I love. So love to see the fact that then he got a big role in a Fast and the Furious movie, and he's kind of like a company man that is out to get Dom because of some things going on in it. And it's like you're always trying to find more big, gigantic macho guys in a franchise full of them. And so he fits in perfectly as just more of these just absolutely jacked titans, just tearing people to shreds, throwing people around, firing guns. And so I had a lot of fun with kind of what they do with his character in the mix of things. There's one kind of other new character in here that I don't know who the actress is. I don't know if I've seen her in anything before. Before the movie started, they kind of had the poster up and she's on the poster, and my wife goes, "Who's that one on the bottom right?" I was like, I don't actually know who that is. And the character isn't super like compelling, given a ton to like in and of itself steal scenes or anything like that. I like who the character is, how she ties into things. I thought that was a real nice little touch. It does factor into a little bit of, by this point in time, one of the flaws with these movies is that everyone has connections to everybody, and everyone has a secret brother, sister, child, parent, everything kind of, Dom and his family. So everyone has this extended family that connects. But I thought it was a nice little touch that they did there. So for me, as the franchise has been going on now over 20 years, in a certain sense, I feel they're kind of running out of steam maybe with the last two and just trying to elevate it by just getting so wacky, wild, crazy, and soap opera-y by bringing in Dom's secret brother. I feel like this one, because they're going on, we have the end in sight. Let's tie back to the past. Let's make it more personal. Let's crank up the stakes. We don't need it to continue on forever, so we can kill characters, we can destroy things, we can crank up the stakes, because this is our final stretch. I think because of all of that, it helped out the movie a good bit to be better than the last few main series Fast and the Furious movies. Gets back to what I enjoyed about 5, 6, and 7. It's more personal. It's still wild and crazy, improbable. There's still a lot of things where the plot is taped together. You're not going to this movie expecting this brilliantly crafted script or anything like that. It's a Fast and the Furious movie. You know what you're going for to a Fast and the Furious movie for, but I think it gets back to that. Not as much of the cartoonish stuff, more of the stuff that I think from the peak little run from, 8 to 10 years ago. It's back to that. Couple other things to know about this movie. There is a mid-credit scene, and it is incredibly important. You want to stay to watch it. It teases where things are going next. It is a big deal. And I don't have words to say how furious I am that major outlet, The Wrap, spoiled the mid-credit scene and called it an exclusive. This is a major publication, not rumor mill, not leaks. Major movie news outlet spoiled the mid-credit scene for this movie and presented it as an announcement, an exclusive. I've had so many people DM me a spoiler for this movie. I've seen so many people ask me in live streams about something, and I'm like, I'm not going to discuss that. I'm not even going to say what you're asking me about because it's not an announcement. It's a spoiler, The Wrap spoiler, and they didn't even know that. People don't even realize that The Wrap is spoiling this movie for them because they posted it in a manner that was so dishonest in trying to play it as something it's not. It was a spoiler. They spoiled something, a great reveal for this movie, and they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be embarrassed. The guy that wrote the article, this is not journalism. This is not a guy that loves movies and fans. This is a guy that for clicks spoiled one of the best reveals of this movie, which is infuriating to me. It was spoiled for me just a couple days ago, and it was spoiled for so many more people. It is outrageous that this was done by The Wrap. They should be embarrassed. I have muted them on all social media. I highly encourage you to do the same because they cannot be trusted. Anyway, that's a little bit of a rant there. Come back this weekend. I will have my updated ranking of the Fast and the Furious movies. I'm rewatching all of them. I've almost got all of them rewatched, and then I'll have my thoughts on that, and I'll probably have more rankings dissecting of the franchise from all different directions next weekend. But when it comes to Fast X, I know a lot of people have lost faith in the movies because of the last few entries. I think this one will probably win some people back. A lot of people are going to think that this one is a big improvement over the last two movies. If you've just thrown in the towel entirely, it's probably not going to win you back. And if you're someone that is still just having a blast with these movies, you're going to have a blast with this one. It's not as cartoonish. It's got more personal stakes. It's got a great villain in Jason Momoa. It's got a plot that's more memorable than the last couple of movies. So I think this is the right direction for the franchise. It has a strong possibility of being the Taco Supreme for 2023. It's not great cinema. It's not the most amazing film ever. It did its job of entertaining me, delivered fun, and I'll say this, since Furious 7, that one ended, and it was kind of like, all right, I think we're done. I don't think I need more after this. And then they announced they were going to keep making more movies, and I still had fun with them, but they ended, and it was like, okay, where are we going with this? This one ends. It's a cliffhanger, so this change that, of course, shapes things a little bit, but it ends, and you're like, oh man, I got to see the next one. I haven't had that feeling in a long time of like, man, I can't wait for the next one. And so that was just really refreshing and nice to have a Fast and the Furious movie that had me excited for the next Fast and the Furious movie. How are they going to get out of this mess? How are they going to resolve all of this? I'm interested in all of it. Anyway, that's my take on it. Once you see it, let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section. Be sure to come back this weekend for my ranking of the Fast and the Furious movies. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.